In this tutorial, we're going to take you through all of the settings that are related to the fundraising component. Now, of course, the fundraising component allows you to convert any InkSoft powered online store into a fundraising platform. So what we're going to do, now that we've logged in as an admin, we're going to go ahead and toggle edit mode. And once we toggle edit mode on, I'm going to go ahead and click on the blue icon at the very bottom right of the screen. Now, of course, that icon allows you to access the component library. Now, components are features that you can add to your InkSoft powered store, and of course you can configure each of those components. Now, components serve different purposes, and this component library will grow over time, so make sure to revisit this often. Now, we're categorizing all components, so you can see I can look at all components, I could look at fundraising components or product list components. In the future, there'll be marketing components, and this will extend as the months go on. So what I can do now is click Fundraiser, and that's going to filter to all of the fundraiser components. And here, there's two different layouts to select from. Now, I can select a layout, and I can always change it later. So what I'm going to do is select a layout, and you'll notice automatically that layout is now available right above the footer. Now, when you hover your mouse over a component, of course, you get options. So on the left-hand side, I have an arrow option, which lets me change the position of that component. So I just moved it to the top of the page. Now, a quick point, the header, where the logo and the navigation displays at the topmost of your website, that will always be at the top. The footer will always display at the bottom of your website. So components can be below the header and above the footer, never replacing the order of the header and the footer, since they serve a very important purpose. So I can use the up and down arrow to reposition the component. Now, of course, I can select Edit, Goal Settings, and I can remove the component. So let's start with Edit. So if I select Edit, that will invoke the menu on the left-hand side that lets me adjust the layout and the primary color in use. So here, if I regretted not selecting layout number 1, I can make that change at any time, and I see that change update live in real time on the screen. Or I could toggle back to layout 2, and again, that adjusts live real time. Now I can select the color option, and right now, anytime you see a color sort of thumbnail with a stripe through it, that means that that's transparent. So what I could do is use the color selector here. So I'm left mouse clicking, and I'm using this color selector to define the color for that particular component area. I also have the ability to enter in a specific hexadecimal value, so I could go and enter in that 6-digit hexadecimal value, or I can click the little up-down to toggle to RGB, so if you know the RGB values for the color you wish to add, or the HSL values. So there's many ways to impart color by either using a color selector. So again, I can left mouse click, I can control the color here and make that selection. I could enter in the hexadecimal value or enter in an RGB or HSL value. So I can go ahead and establish the color, and I see that on screen. Now, if you regret the color and you want to come back and change that, you can select recently used color, and again, I can make that transparent, and so nothing displays there. So that's how you adjust or use the edit function to control the layout and the color. So let's go to the next function here, which is goal settings. Now you'll notice there's a button on the component itself. If you were in edit mode, you'll also notice the ability to invoke goal settings here by this blue text icon at the very bottom. So I'll go ahead and make that selection. And here we have fundraiser goal setup. So there's a few things that we can do here. Number one, at the very top, there's 3 navigation areas here: sales goal, description, and end date. Now this is sort of a wizard, so you can first configure your sales goal, and you'll scroll to the bottom, and you can click next, which will take you to the next setting, which is establishing a fundraiser description. And after you establish the description, of course, you can click next again to consider an end date and an end time. So let's take you through this step by step. The first option is a financial goal. So an example of this would be entering a fixed dollar amount, and the fundraising component will track the progress towards that goal. So let's say the scenario might be we're trying to help a school raise $5,000 for to fund their band program. So we can establish the financial goal as $5,000 is the goal. Now every time a consumer purchases, whatever purchase amount will be reflected in that goal. So let's say that we've sold $4,000 worth of product. It would show the goal as $5,000 and the progress is $4,000 towards that goal. So again, I can enter in a dollar amount here as the financial goal. Then I can scroll down and I can consider a payout metric. So this is a setting that determines how to calculate the amount raised. And there's two ways to configure this. Number one, you can use a percent of profit. So if I select percent of profit, here I'm going to enter in the percentage of profit that's going to go to the organization. So if I've committed 20% of all orders will go back to the school, I would enter in the appropriate percentage. Now the other option is a amount per unit, so a dollar amount for every item sold. So what I could do is enter in a fixed amount per item. So I could say $5 from every item sold is going to go towards the fundraising check or fundraising monies that will be payable to the institution. So the most popular and most widely used is going to be percent of profit. However, you do have the option to establish a dollar amount per unit. Now that I've entered in those settings, what I can do, there's an option here to disable the store once the sales goal is met. So if it's your intention to create a fundraising selling opportunity and you want to disable the store, meaning prevent customers from placing orders once the goal has been met, you would select this option to disable. So once that goal is met, then consumers will no longer have the ability to place orders. So this isn't a widely used feature. However, there are some scenarios where it is relevant and important. You'll notice as soon as you make that selection, you're going to get a message here. Are you really sure you want to disable the store once the goal is met? So again, once it's disabled, people will no longer have the ability to accept orders. So I can go ahead and cancel that. Now the next setting here is units goal. This is the ability to establish, rather than a financial goal, I can establish a goal in the number of products sold. So I can say, as an example, we want to sell 500 products. So I can enter in the amount of units that I want to sell for the fundraiser. And I also have the ability to disable the store once that goal is met. Now you'll notice here you have a little status indicator, units sold or financial goal, because you always have the ability to revisit this and make modifications. So let's say in the case of a unit goal, we've sold 500 units and we want to increase this to 1,000 because we're getting a lot of publicity and the store is really starting to accelerate. So at any point in time, you'll see the current status and you can change the status and save those changes. So it's not uncommon for a fundraiser program to evolve and change. You can always revisit these settings to make any adjustments. Now I do want to point out, you'll notice that every single goal, I have the ability to reset the progress. So on the right-hand side of the title, I have the ability to click Reset Progress, which is going to give you a warning message. Are you really sure you want to reset the goal progress? So what this is going to do is bring the fundraiser back to zero. It's going to reset it like it's brand new. There had been no activities. Now, it's not going to affect any orders that have already been placed or any reports. It's simply going to change the front end to reestablish the fundraising goal. Now, this is useful if you're doing a program every single year and you're just renewing that program and you want to reset it because you're starting for that particular season. So as we continue to make progress here, we've talked about financial goal, units goal. Now let's talk about open-ended goal, the third and final option here. This is really not having a defined goal. This is open-ended. So this is just keeping track of the amount that's been raised. So this is useful when you have sort of a big selling opportunity and it doesn't really have a clear end date. If you look at the Ice Bucket Challenge, that fundraising initiative had a lot of legs, a lot of social media play, and it really lasted for, say a solid 12 months. So if you want to leverage a long-term program, there's not really definites about how much money you want to raise or the targets, you can leave it open-ended, and that's simply going to communicate the amount of money that's been raised. Now again, for this, you can consider a customer payout metric, and again, that's percent of profit or a unit amount sold. So configure whatever is relevant. So once you make your selections here, you can click Next, and that's going to take you to the description. And that's the second part of configuring your fundraising goal. So here you can enter in your fundraising message. So this is a WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get. So you can start typing in content here. Now, a pro tip, make sure to be specific. This is an opportunity for you to communicate the purpose of the fundraiser and the details of the fundraiser. So think about all the commonly asked questions, the customer service questions that might appear about when should I expect to receive my item, how much money is going towards the cause of the organization, what is the real purpose and intent of this, how long does it last. Make sure to address the common questions here to spare your customers any friction and to cause any customer service ripples or effects by not communicating clearly. Now, there are some options here to bold, to italicize, to put in links, to change the size of text. So some ways to format your message by using this WYSIWYG editor here. So once you've configured your message, go ahead and click Next, and that's going to take you to the third and final configuration here, which is establishing an end date and an end time. So by default, there will be no end date or end time configured, so it's marked as no. As soon as I click Yes, this is the ability for me to click End Date, and that's going to bring up a calendar selector. This is going to be already set to today's date by default. So what I can do is now advance by clicking the arrows here to go advance by a month or go back in time by a month. Or I can simply use the drop down here to choose a specific month. You even have a year selector. And what I can do from the calendar is choose the date that I want to establish as the end date. Now I can also configure an end time. This is optional. So once the end date has passed, the store would then be concluded. But you can also configure a very specific end time. So I could have the date established and then also establish the time. Now notice there's AM and PM. So as I select the hour, then it's going to prompt me to choose the time. And of course I could toggle between AM and PM. So hour, minutes, and then of course you can toggle AM, PM and select done. So this program would end on the 13th of June, 2017 at 11:30 p.m. And the time zone is established based on your proximity. So here it's automatically set to Arizona Mountain Standard Time. However, I could change that. Now this is useful when you have a selling program that might be in a different time zone. So maybe you're hosting an online fundraiser for an organization in a different region of the country with a different time zone. Well, it may be more appropriate to have the time zone be aligned with the time zone of that specific organization or their location. Now again, I have the ability to disable the store on that end date. And what that's going to do is prevent consumers from placing orders once you've made the decision to end that selling program. Now the real purpose of ending or disabling the store is to ensure that there's no stragglers, meaning those that didn't place their order in time. And the challenge for most print shops becomes you place your order with your suppliers, you're in print, you're in production, and then somebody wants to place an order. So that's a way to disable and really remove that point of friction because it can cause an awful lot of disarray. So that is, again, the value of the disable function. I'll go ahead and select done. And once I've configured my fundraiser, I see it live on screen. Now, of course, as progress has been made on that fundraiser, this is a countdown and will update. So you can see amount raised. Let's say that somebody had placed an order for $50. It would show the amount raised. Of course, the profit towards the goal. So amount raised would be, again, that payout metric of percent of profit or the dollar amount that you've committed per unit. Now, right below that, you also see how many days are left in the fundraiser, and then you can see clearly communicated ends on the 13th of June, 2017 at 11:30 p.m. MST. Now, you can always come back to goal settings and make changes here. So let's say that we want to reestablish the end date and change that again to the 2nd of May. We want to change the time, so we're going to change this to AM versus PM. I can go ahead and click Done, and we can update, and you'll see that updates live on the fly. So at any point in time, just like all the other features of the store platform, you can make edits and changes as necessary. Now, the last feature that you need to be aware of is the ability to remove a fundraiser. So there's a number of reasons why you might choose to do that. Let's say that you made the mistake of adding the fundraising component and you don't want to use it. Maybe you're converting a fundraising program into just a fixed store that sells decorated goods. You can always click this red trash can icon, and that will remove the component. Now, before the component is removed, you'll get a warning message here. Are you really sure you want to remove this component? So you can elect to remove by clicking yes, or you can choose to keep the component. Now, once you remove it, it's irreversible. So in terms of the progress that's been made towards the goal, you would need to reset that. So this has been an overview of the fundraising functionality. If you have any questions or need any assistance, please make sure to reach out to the InkSoft Success Squad.